Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Breaking news tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
From the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
Welcome to the stream, everybody. Thank you guys for being here. Happy Thanksgiving for all my American followers that are out there. Everybody else, you're missing out on turkey and ham and mashed potatoes and a lot of other amazing foods. It was awesome, guys. So, right off the bat, Salvatore Pais interview Sunday, December 1st. I think it's December 1st at 2:30 Eastern time. 1:30 Central Time. We will talk more about that at the end of the show today. I'm going to go over some of the questions with you guys so that you guys can weigh in as well, because I'm probably not going to do real-time questions in the chat. We'll see. Okay. Today, I want to dig right into EVOs. I actually just got done recording with Chad and Sherry from the Investigate Earth podcast, where I'm asked about the Manchester UFO and the Capital, whatever UFOs that are out there. And right off the bat, I want to mention that the reason why the MH370 videos are so compelling is because we have high quality military grade thermal and infrared footage. We don't have footage like this when it comes to like almost like 99.9% of videos that are out there. Even this video doesn't do us very much in terms of being able to tell what we're looking at with these orbs. We do get some idea of the speed in which they come in because we can see this high speed and we understand their vectoring capabilities here. Yes, Sibbers. And this is actually good for proving the videos are real, because this is what I told AARO. AARO, they only need to confirm this video is real and then the whole thing is real. This is really what they have, a Sibbers system, and this is really Sibbers, and this is what their system looks like. Then the videos are real. Done. I mean, there's nobody knew about this system in 2014. We don't even know about it now. So these videos existing is just so much better than anything we could ever see from, grainy cell phone footage or whatever we get with respect to, the Manchester videos or whatever else. So those videos could be great, but look at this. Like this right here. This is the Rosetta Stone. That's the Rosetta Stone in physics that we just watched right there. When you watch a plane disappear and the heat signatures in this orb right here, that heat signature, we're going to talk a lot about this today. Cold fusion. Now, so I actually couldn't believe how many scientific papers I've read about these EVOs and these cold plasmas recently. And we're going to dig into them. I'm going to try to do my best getting through these. I do have a plan for the beginning of the year to begin to produce content that is kind of more in line with what other people are producing, with short form content that's more scrunched down, which might lead to less live streams. I don't know. For now, we're going to still do it the old school way, guys. If you've been with me for a while, the old school way is we just go through the things one at a time. So these EVOs, I'm going to give you guys the breakdown of this. If you're new or whatever, this is what we've learned about these EVOs. A guy named Bostic was one of the first people to research these EVOs, these plasmas with these self-organizing properties. Russians were also researching it. And I found a paper that's done by some Russians as well. And then Bostic starts to meet up. He meets up with Ken Shoulders. Ken Shoulders was at the Stanford Research Institute. Ken Shoulders starts looking into them. Ken Shoulders meets up with Hal Puthoff. And then they become little buddies. Next thing you know, Hal Puthoff is writing papers about zero-point energy. Ken Shoulders is researching these exotic vacuum objects. The other paper we're going to look at as well is 1992. Jack Nachamkin writes a paper for the Air Force Research Labs or Air Force Research, whatever, in 1992. And in his paper, he critiques and looks at the work of Bostic and Ken Shoulders. And his is all about the stabilization of the plasma. How could you get this plasma to be stable? So what this all boils down to is that humans have written the papers and figured out the exact criteria to have a perfectly stable ball of plasma. And potentially it needs to spin as well. It's creating this I don't know if soliton is the right word, but probably is. It's creating a standing waveform within the ball of plasma, meaning a perfect waveform that's not like having interference happen. Yeah, Jack Nachamkin, that's him. Yeah, we're gonna look at his paper, and then let me look at my notes here. And then we're going to connect that paper to the ball lightning study, which is where it's actually explained how we can produce these EVOs and the actual apparatus. So if Jeremy's going to be in the chat, that's going to be interesting because I want to know if he has any of this equipment that's necessary to produce these plasma balls. Oh, testing, Dustin O'Driscoll. Never sent one of these before. Thank you very much, Dustin. Appreciate it. Let me see what else we got. Okay. Let's start with that. Okay. Starting from the beginning here. Oh, and we have a cool video here as well. I think somebody actually produced these. Soliton has to do with waves moving in unison. So a lot of this as well has to do with this idea of coupling, which is that like we shouldn't think of individual particles as moving around, but we should think of everything as being stuck together and moving in a kind of fluid symmetry all the time. That's how we should be thinking about the universe in general. And if we look at things like that from that perspective of fluid dynamics, then we're going to have a much better understanding of how the physics equations match up to what we experience in real life. Okay, so Ken Shoulders, whoops. So I found this cool, I don't know, somebody else probably found it, but I refound it. This cool website about Ken Shoulders on exotic vacuum objects, challenging particle theory in general. Basically says that this was an area where nobody was really looking into this. It's not really sure why, actually. Now, I'm not going to read through all of this because we have a lot of stuff to go through here tonight. But one of the big things that it mentions here is about charge and mass non-conservation. Down here. Okay. So it says here that, and right above this, it talks about whether or not this can bore through solid matter. Bore through ordinary solid matter. So there's a lot of arguments about whether or not this was causing alchemy to occur or teleportation or annihilation or some combination of these things. So The most holy laws of single particle charge and mass conservation are totally disregarded when electrons consort in this ensemble mode. They're talking about these electrons coming together in these cold plasmas when normally they would not. As the values of both charge and mass vary over a range of 1 billion to 1 when the initial number of electrons used to form an EVO are compared to the number of electrons contained within the EVO black state. I can't remember. Ken Shoulders had something for the black EVOs. I think those were the ones we were curious about. Energy production. This gross reduction of charge and mass are at the root of the so-called cold fusion energy gain. The process of energy production in this case is not nuclear in its origin, but rather traceable to the high velocity of nucleon acceleration achieved efficiency through, first, mass reduction of nuclei by EVO association, and then the concomitant interaction of its high velocity projectile operating at high mass by virtue of EVO entrainment loss, dumping its energy onto the host lattice. So this is pretty huge right here. What he's saying right here is that this is real cold fusion. So we watched a clip that I couldn't find the other day of Ken Shoulders saying that all the people that were doing cold fusion were doing it wrong. They were looking for they were looking for an analog cold fusion to hot fusion. But that's not what cold fusion is doing. Cold fusion is actually creating a situation where you have a localized gravitational field where the molecules that are naturally coming together, as opposed to hot fusion, where you're just turning up the heat and you're just trying to increase the temperature. So how do you create one in your garage? Don't worry, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that at some point. Okay. I'm going to read the rest of this actually as well. This almost arbitrary change in charge and mass causes havoc with another holy law, namely the law of conservation of energy. Factually, the only actual havoc is caused when clinging to the old laws of single particle theory and practice. Moving on to the new world of multi-particle ensembles vanquishes this disarray. I would disagree there. What vanishes that one is the idea of the ether. Knowing that there's an ether of energy actually vanquishes breaking both laws. Although the nuclear world was bypassed for a production of energy via the cold fusion process, it is severely impacted through the ability of electron ensembles, EVOs, to transmit nucleons almost as easily as part of their normal interaction with matter. There's plenty of nuclear ash found in the cold fusion process, but it is not necessarily a hallmark of nuclear energy release. Incidentally, almost all of this ash is non-radioactive. The notable exemption is the production of tritium. So I love this. And the reason why I love this, guys, is because this is what I was talking about, where cold fusion, I was like, I'm pretty sure everybody was wrong on cold fusion. Pons and Fleischmann did discover cold fusion. What happened was they didn't realize that their mechanism doing it is not the most efficient way. And they were judging it based on traditional hot fusion theory. Cold fusion can never be judged based on that, because cold fusion is using something that is fundamentally different than our understanding of the universe currently, which means space is not empty. And why is this important? Because in 1980 is when Ken Shoulders, from reading the paper by Bergstrom, the 1973 paper by Bergstrom, he realized there really is an ether. Once Ken Shoulders in 1980 realized there was an ether, he realized that we can manipulate a region of space. That's what he and Hal Puthoff were doing. I can say that with 100% certainty, having never spoken to either of them, just from reading their scientific works and following the history of what they've been doing. Okay, let's go to the next one. So we're going to skip over the rest of that paper, although there is a part there where it talks about propulsion mechanisms right after that, and that this can be used as basically a propulsion mechanism, kind of talking about warp drive in here. Okay, so let's switch to... So this next paper I've got queued up here. Yeah, changing the permittivity of the vacuum. In fact, permittivity of the vacuum, this is actually a good time to bring that one up. Yeah, here it is. It's funny that my tweet is the second link when you Google permittivity transitions by Ken Shoulders. Okay, well, we'll just pull up the abstract. I must have it on my computer or something. So, permittivity transitions by Ken Shoulders. So this paper we've reviewed several times. So now Ken Shoulders comes out onto the scene. He's studying EVOs. And Ken Shoulders realizes that these EVOs are naturally forming toroidal shapes, but also spherical formations, and that they are long living. They're living beyond the energy levels that's being thrown into them. And he writes this paper in 2000 about permittivity transitions. So a form of inertial propulsion will be discussed that arises from the inertial retification effects available by modulating the state of the EV, thereby the permittivity of space and the concatenant, this word again, concatenant inertia or effective mass of moving material through space. So what he's saying is you can create a permittivity mode where you are creating a bubble, is what he's saying right here. It will be shown that the same type of permittivity change through EV modulation can achieve a unidirectional current flow, DC current, and that this gives rise to methods for generating monopole effects and vector potentials useful for communication. Even down here, it mentions the root process for energy conservation or conversion methods resembling cold fusion are reviewed. So this as well is where you can tell that, oh, yeah, look, it's that's Bob in the chat. Bob's here. We can tell just from Ken Shoulders' paper here that he knew that he was looking at real cold fusion. So we've broken down another misconception, which is cold fusion. Everybody was expecting cold fusion to work like hot fusion was going to work. We're just going to throw the particles in a box and we're going to heat the box up and we're going to get fusion's going to happen. But other people were looking at it going, what if we use some of these pressure effects that we've been seeing, like the Casimir effect? Ken Shoulders went, what if we use plasma? What if plasma is the secret? I mean, the sun is plasma. Doesn't it make sense that we could create a plasma? But what I don't think people really understood was that temperature is not a necessary requirement for producing these fusion reactions. They're analogous to fusion reactions. But if we are not bound by the same restrictions that hot fusion is bound by, now you can have a much wider range of possibilities from cold fusion. If we have a plasma and this thing is producing more energy in whatever forms it is, electrical, heat, etc., then it's getting in, and there's transmutation happening in there, a wide range of things could be occurring. A wide range of different processes where we can have an input and an output. Because now we have a situation where we've broken conventional physics. We're getting more out than what we were putting into it. So cold fusion might be real, but cold fusion might not be what Pons and Fleischmann were doing. If you guys go and look at the history of Pons and Fleischmann, you're going to realize, wow, everybody was doing the same experiment. This kind of reminded me of LK99 a little bit, where everybody was going, oh, we're all going to go and reproduce this same thing that these people produced. And I thought, well, what if the concept is right, but we misunderstand something? Shouldn't people be trying different variants? And this is why I think Ken Shoulders figured out the real deal. The fundamental property that allows cold fusion to be a thing, its most base form, its form of fire, like with this lighter, is EVOs. EVOs are the most base form of cold fusion. And everything else you're doing with these plasmoids is based on that technology, that science. The same way where we have this fire and we just light this fire up and I can smoke a cigarette or some marijuana with the lighter, right? Is that once we've figured out how to make these EVOs, now we've got a level, we've tiered up in our technology, and significantly so. Significantly so. And awesome to see you guys in the chat. If I miss anything, please correct me. I did watch a lot of Bob's videos. I went through, I don't know how many scientific papers, but the second scientific paper, okay, that was already 2. The third scientific paper that I want to jump into is this one here. And Bob knows this one for sure as well. So this paper is a paper that was done by Hal Fox. Hal Fox was working with Ken Shoulders. And I have a couple documents that corroborate this as well. So let me pull this over. Oops. Okay. So we got a couple documents here. This one is from Hal Fox to Ken Shoulders. And they're basically talking about trying to monetize this. And right down here where it's bolded, it says that the urgency is coming up with a broad coverage was triggered first by the realization that the soon-to-be released work of Neal and Gleason, coupled with the almost immediate acceptance of Shoulders' explanation of cold fusion, would soon result in several others getting the same overview. Now, this is huge, guys. Like, do you understand the words that were just written there? What was going on? This is something that I've seen happen a lot. A lot of people realize that this stuff is real, and the first thing they do is they go, crap, how do we monetize this before everybody else figures it out? But you want to know the rub? This document is from, what does it say at the top? 1996. 1996 this was written. And we're still no closer to cold fusion today than we were in 1996. So this is the thing too. And I've heard this with people that I've worked with as well. I've heard this from Dave Rossi, who I love. I love Dave Rossi, guys. And I guarantee you that a lot of engineers this happens with, right? They realize that, oh crap, they figured out cold fusion, or we figured out this magical technology, and then the world just doesn't figure it out. The world just doesn't figure it out because, like, we're a lot dumber than people give us credit for. And this is so big because this also explains the suppression. The reason why the suppression has been so easy is because this is 1996. These people are like, crap, they're about to figure out cold fusion, guys. We got to get to market right away before everybody else. And then just nothing ever comes of it. Because commercializing it is a whole nother aspect of it. And this was like to the question I was asked earlier on Chad and Sherry, Investigate Earth. Check it out later when it drops. You know, Lockheed Martin isn't making a bunch of money off this tech. Why? Because they don't need to, because they're already making a bunch of money selling F-35s. And you're like, but that technology is obsolete. Yeah, so what? Still money. Money is money, right? They're just selling the newest thing. Like, you know, you don't need a new iPhone every year, but they get you to buy one every year. Same exact concept. Money is money. And then the other one here, this one, so that was Hal Fox. And don't worry, I'm going to get to the point here. This one is them patenting it. And this patent right here, this energy conversion using high charge density patent, this patent is basically how to extract energy from an EVO. So they've figured out these EVOs are basically a permanent battery. And then they figuring out how to extract the battery energy from the EVO. Oh, wow. Thank you, Bob. Hal Fox bought Ken Shoulders patents. Oh, wow. Really? Wow. Thank you for that donation too, Bob. Appreciate you. That's huge. Guys, if you guys don't follow Bob Grenier, the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project, Martin Fleischmann was, you know, he's the Fleischmann and Pons and Fleischmann. So Bob Grenier, they, you know, rebranded low energy nuclear reactions. They never gave up. They've always known this stuff is real. And we're just dumb. We're dumb. Society is dumb. And I was one of the dumb people that was, you know, busy playing Minecraft when I could have been trying to learn about what happened with cold fusion. But we're making up for it. Okay, so this is important. Why? Because we're building a storyline here. We're trying to figure out the story. We're investigators. And we all understand, okay, these people are researching this. What was the history of this? What happened? Look at this. There's Hal Fox. This is basically a EVO paper confirming Ken Shoulders' work. I read through most of this paper. I don't have a lot of highlights for it, but there is one part I'm definitely going to show you guys. This is basically about Ken Shoulders here. And they're looking at this and they're going, why are these electrons clustering together in this plasma when they should be repelling? They should be dissipating, but they're not. Why are they doing that? So the part that I want to show is that in this paper, they talk about the energy levels that can be achieved. Now, this is big. Why is this big, guys? Because the energy levels that can be achieved, we are looking for something that's going to be consistent with Salvatore Pais's patents, with his patents. And I've memorized those numbers now pretty much. He says it's like 10 to the 25 joules or 10 to the 32 joules per something. Something cubed is something squared. A lot. It's a big number. Well, these numbers are starting to get close. Not necessarily, but this is 10 to the 19 joules per meter cubed right here, is what this number is right here for an energy density. So if it's 10 to the 25 joules per meter cubed, 10 to the 19 is getting close. Now you might say, hey, Ashton, but you're off by like 4 zeros. Yes, but remember the most important part. When our orbs come together, our energy level is increasing exponentially. So there's another factor. We don't have to hit the limitation with just one orb. We just need to come close with these orbs. So, yeah. So this energy level here, this is the one I want. Let me see. Yeah, this is the paragraph I want. So it says, this is an incredible, unimaginable energy combination. If the EVOs were blasted and this potential energy were completely transformed into kinetic energy, then each electron in the EV would have 6 times 10 to the 2 mega EVs, whatever that means, which is corresponding to an electron temperature of 10 to the 12 Kelvin. That's a pretty big number. That would be 10 to the 2, or what is this, 100 or 1,000 times higher than the temperature in the core of the hydrogen bomb explosion. So basically they're saying the amount of energy is hundreds, if not thousands of times higher than the hydrogen bomb explosion, or even in a white dwarf. So, yes, exactly. Finally, someone puts it in terms that anime Ashton can understand. Never-ending mana. Yes, it's like you're playing Dungeons & Dragons and you get never-ending mana. and you just keep casting Firestorm down as much as you want. There, see that puts it in terms that they can understand. Or if you are a Star Wars fan, it's like you've got unlimited force powers and you're the Emperor and you can just lightning people forever. And every time they get close, you just hit them with more lightning and they get zapped away. It's just unlimited mana cheat, basically. So that's why this is important, is because this goes to show. People ask, like Ashton, and there's going to be more, don't worry. But why are you afraid that this is a doomsday weapon? Well, because I'm reading shit like this where they're like, this is an unimaginably high energy density. And there's going to be another part that we're going to look at here in a few minutes where it's like the math says there can be infinite energy in this region. You're like, okay, well, I mean, infinite's a lot. So, you know, at some point you're going to make a black hole. And at some point you're going to suck everybody away. So that's the reason why. Okay. Okay, there's one more part we're going to read, but I just got a couple more donations, guys. Have you looked at Terrence Howard's propulsion system? I saw the video with Billy Carson where they go through it. It seems neat, but I don't know if it's not anti-gravity. I don't think. I mean, it's just a neat system that's out there. Shane, thank you for the donation. I appreciate it. Okay, so for this next one, I don't know where this part's in the paper. So somewhere in the paper it says this. From the theory and results shown in this paper. Oh, this is probably from the conclusion. Whatever. We could imagine an EV process as follows. Oh, it's cut off. Oh, there it is. A large number of electrons are locally emitted in a very short time. Less than 1 divided by, that's the wavelength, right? In the same time scale, a directional motion of cluster of electrons are produced by a directional electric field. At the formation, the shape of the electron cluster may be spherical, ellipsoidal, or spheroidal, but will almost instantaneously be adjusted to a toroidal shape by the force balance requirement. So, why did I want to point this out? You might say, Ashton, why are you pointing out weird paragraphs like this? I don't understand. Angular frequency. So, this is important because we are trying to me, what this reminds me of right away is a laser, is a attosecond laser. We are trying to produce a very powerful beam of electrons into a region of space. Because what we're going to do is we're going to turn it into a plasma. So we want to add extra electrons to a region of space, or we want to strip the electrons from the matter in that space, and we're going to naturally produce our plasma with that. That's what we're trying to do. And what we're going to find out in one of the next papers we're going to look at here is that there is a critical frequency where you get above a certain frequency and now the plasma acts completely differently. Below that frequency, plasma just acts normal. Above that frequency, it reaches some bizarre threshold. And I haven't found an explanation for that threshold. Okay. So we looked at that. Just closing a couple images here. Now, the next thing I want to bring up is, I think I want to bring up Bob Greenier's Substack here called Remote View. Okay. This is I read through this while I was going through it. He actually did a full analysis of the scientific paper, force-free time harmonic plasmoids. It's probably better than mine, to be perfectly honest with you. So worth checking out, but I just figured the more the merrier on this. So in here as well, real quick, thank you very much. Do you think the best sphere is a recovered plasma orb? I don't think so, but I'm not 100% sure. And there might be more than one type of plasma orbs. It turns out they're not necessarily limited to only one type. And I don't know if they're transmuting elements and maybe they can produce metal. I don't know. So I haven't figured out right now A lot of people ask about like the solid objects versus like a plasma sphere. I don't know what the connection is, if there's a connection. More to come on that. This here is very important. This is a letter from Richard Feynman to Ken Shoulders. Okay. Richard Feynman, the Richard Feynman, right down here, Richard P. Feynman of the Manhattan Project, apologizing to Ken Shoulders. He did not see how 10 to the 10 or 10 to the 11 electrons could be kept as a ball in a vacuum without ions. So basically what he's saying right here is he did not believe. He was saying, Ken Shoulders, you must be a bitch. You must be a bitch to think that you can have all these electrons in a little ball next to each other. He's going, no, the Coulomb repulsion would knock them apart. That shouldn't be possible. But like a lot of scientists, they themselves get proven to be the bitch. And it turns out he was wrong. Turns out Richard Feynman can be wrong. So the size seems to be governed by the electric field available without breakdown, but it looks like a reasonable possibility is 2 to the 10 to the 22 electrons in a magnetic field. Now that I understand how it might work, I should be glad to discuss it with you again anytime you wish. And then basically he calls out the dude who explains to him why Ken Shoulders was right. He says, I again apologize for my skepticism, which prevented me from hearing about something very interesting. It's called the strong force, bitch. Yeah, and the question here, so the strong force is the nuclear force, right? Am I getting there, guys? And at some point, the molecules get close enough together where the strong force takes over, and then they just stick together. They fuse together. And so what's happening here, though, is not just the strong force. It must be more than the strong force, because we are seeing these electrons, which should be repelling each other, forming extremely dense clusters. It's strongly speculated that it's related to the Casimir effect, and that by changing the permittivity of the vacuum, everywhere in that region, in the vacuum, in our bubble, we're changing the permittivity. So what we're doing is we're changing the effect of gravity within the bubble itself. So now everywhere in there, molecules can get a little bit closer. Imagine like you're hacking in to the rules of reality. The rules of our reality. And you're going, you know what? That old speed of light, I'm going to change that speed of light. We're going to change it. We're going to make it lower, but just in this region. Once you've changed in the rules of physics, now what do we see happen? In this case, what you're going to see happen is you're going to see all the electrons are now going to start squeezing together. I think that's why they call it this pinching effect. But it's only happening within this region, only within that region of space. And then they're going to naturally form a natural shape. It's like, how are they going to start to swirl and interact? Turns out they form a vortex. A vortex, just like pulling the tub, the plug in your tub. Okay, questions real quick. Do you think it'd be hard to make a working model of an orb? Well, I think it's going to be hard to make a 20-foot wide working model of an orb, yes. To make a small one, let's just say odds are increasing rapidly. Odds are increasing rapidly. And so we're going to get there. I know everyone's getting excited. They want to know how do we make the orbs? What do we got to do? The plasmoid splitting institute was confirmed today by ARL, releasing a TAN confirming the Puerto Rico video. One of the things that does get brought up, I don't know if I have a link to it in any of my paper, in any of the stuff here, is it does get mentioned about that you can basically produce these and they might be entangled when you produce them as well, which was something that was big that we've been wondering about. So how do you entangle the orbs to one another? When you produce them together, you might be able to like produce them two at a time and have them be entangled as well. So it's going to start to get pretty weird, guys. Like, is it giving birth to one or the other? Can they give birth to another orb and then are they entangled? You know, so we'll see. Okay. Let's go back to the live. What was Martin Fleischman saying? Yeah, so the Coulomb or the Casimir attraction appears to be what allows the electrons to come together. So just to repeat that one more time, why is this a thing? Because if we put two plates together, we are squeezing out the 0-point energy modes between it. And then what happens? We get a collapse like this. So now if we do that to an entire region of space-time, so we take this bubble here and we squeeze out some of the modes. We're not going to use two plates, though. We're just going to polarize the region of space-time. We're going to polarize this region here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to cause the Casimir effect to happen naturally at all points within that region. This is where we've created a spherical cavity for the Casimir effect. But instead of using plates, we are just making a conductive sphere around it. That is how I personally think this is happening. And I speculate from reading these papers that this is what these scientists think are happening as well. And yeah, I think the question here is that on the tiniest scales, like the size of a proton or even an electron, are we just seeing little tiny quantum black holes? Maybe that's all these things really are when we look at them, is tiny little connections to this extra dimension of energy that's out there. And so I do think there's this connection conceptually between black holes at the massive scale and what atoms and particles are doing at the tiniest scales. I think that there very likely is some direct connection, but that's just hypothesis I have. The idea of Dirac holes is huge because Dirac holes is how are you pulling the energy out of this ether of energy that's all around us? I keep saying there's this ocean of energy. Dirac holes are exactly how you're doing it. And the energy states in these Dirac holes are negative. And you are just literally pulling it out. Imagine like the little energy is kind of just sparkling on the surface here, and we are just capturing that energy. And when we are creating this permittivity transition in this sphere of this region, we are naturally pulling that energy out at the same time. That's why these orbs are self-sustaining, is that they have a direct connection to this energy. Now, what we're going to find out is that they have to be in a very, very specific equilibrium state. Very specific equilibrium state. Okay. Now, the next thing. Okay, teleportation. Okay. So I've also, most of this, just for record, I got from, there was a really good post that I went over, I think a while back on Reddit, that somebody had pieced all this information together. So shout out to them. I don't remember what their username was, but I remember their username was created the day the plane disappeared, which I thought was odd, in 2014. Yeah, I don't think you want to recreate this in your garage, guys. I don't think you want to blow yourself up or, whatever. Whenever you're dealing with unlimited energy or the potential for unlimited energy, it's somewhat dangerous. So this is teleportation using EVOs by Ken Shoulders, 2007. So the guy that discovered these balls of energy talks about using them to teleport. And the first thing he says is basically that we are not doing Star Trek teleportation. We're literally just moving something from one location to the next. Straightforward teleportation. So if you are a mainstream physicist, you must know then that this is talking about modulating the speed of light. Because really, the number you need to change to cause teleportation to be possible is you need to change the speed of light. Speed of light's the big problem we have. If you can manipulate the speed of light, you can get around the math. So he says that there's this other paper that was published by these Russian guys as well. Observation of a transformation of chemical elements during electric discharge. I just thought this was interesting because this is starting to piece together other people that were looking into this and what types of terms you might want to look for because not every single paper that's out there is being called, oh, EVO, blah, blah, blah. You know, they don't call them that. Oh, you know who this paper is? Bob seems to know. Anyway, I'm going to pull it up here in a second. So in their work, their ensuing discharge produced transmuted products in the water that could be analyzed by conventional methods. In addition, a plasma-like ball of light was seen to arise from the insulated top of the vessel that persisted for long after the discharge current subsided. So right there is like, why is this ball of plasma staying around long after the discharge current has subsided? So this is exactly the type of thing that we're talking about here. I forget, what does he say about this being teleported? Having experienced this basic process of nuclear entrainment in EVOs and witnessed them being transported to unlikely places, it's not hard to see how the process described by the Russian authors is a very real example of teleportation of matter through the cover of the experiment. The apparatus used by them was not intended to produce such effects, hence it was not optimized for teleportation, but it does show the possibility of operating the process at a moderately large scale. Wow. I mean, to me, that's pretty huge because we already have a really good idea, you know, from the MH370 videos. These videos are real. I know some people don't want to accept it or what have you, but if that's one EVO right there, we already know what the answer is. We're staring at the answer. The answer is use 3 EVOs, have them go around your object in a 0-point system, and then have them collapse down. And why is this smart? Because this is now allowing you to achieve energy levels that wouldn't be possible with just one EVO. Now you can multiply them together, and their Coulomb repulsion increases exponentially as they come together, as they collapse on one another. So we have a really good idea already of exactly what we're looking for here. And the interesting part is about all these papers I read, they almost never mention the idea of combining them together. There's like only one part in one of these papers where it briefly mentions it. So I clicked on this link here, which goes to the Russian paper right here. Here's the Russian paper they're talking about. Yeah, Liskinov. So yeah, Bob Grenier was talking about it. And the part that I liked on it, so they actually go into real detail. Bob has probably talked about this quite a lot. You guys could check it out yourself. They go into detail. They have images as well of these plasmoids that they've been creating. So pretty cool. What I thought was interesting when I got to the end, oops, that's not what I want. Here we go. Discussion of experimental results. A magnetonucleon catalyst hypothesis. Oh, I'm starting to remember now, guys. I'm starting to remember now. I'm just going to read through this paragraph here. Apparently, is the symmetry of location of plasma channels that was the reason for the BPF appearance, which in turn allowed for the dynamics of the optical spectrum of the emergent radiation to be studied. Okay, we're going to skip past that part. One can try to explain the BPF using the cluster model of a fractal ball model. However, we have looked for a hypothesis which can explain all experimental facts. Such a hypothesis, in our opinion, could be the formation of magnetically charged particles, magnetic monopoles. The first attempt to explain the ball lightning by magnetic monopoles was done in paper 13. This paper suggested to explain the properties of a ball lightning by Rubikov's effect. 14, predicted for super heavy monopoles, which should exist in the great unification theory. In our opinion, the experimental results obtained in our paper provides no serious support for the hypothesis. However, the assumption that magnetic monopoles form in the plasma discharge in water could be one possible reason for the obtained experimental results. How unusual this assumption might appear. Now, I thought this paper also mentioned something about the type of magnetic confinement of the thing, but I can't remember exactly where it is. Actually, is this it right here? Yeah, here it is, actually right here. Okay. Man, look at me, I'm good. To explain the element transformation, we have put forward the working hypothesis of magnetonucleon catalysis. We introduced this term to designate the process which supposedly occurs in the plasma channel. The essence of MNC is that the magnetic monopole with a large magnetic charge and an even small kinetic energy can overcome the Coulomb barrier and become bound with atomic nucleus. The MNC must have many common features with muon catalysis, in which the Coulomb barrier is subsequently decreased due to the large mass of the muon meson. Since the magnetic monopole seems to be a stable particle, MNC may be more effective. Okay. Yes, Coulomb on these nuts, chat. What does this mean? This right here is explaining that this isn't cold fusion. This is something different. This is not what we would think of as cold fusion happening. What they're saying here is there is a magnetic property that is causing these things to come together when normally they would not be. It's not temperature. It's not heated up and cause there to be more energy, and therefore there's going to be more interactions. We're causing a magnetic effect, which what does magnetism do? Sticks things together or pulls them apart. Oh, so he's a mainstream Soviet nuclear scientist. See, chat, I only do real science. For the haters out there, nothing but real science here. You want Russian nuclear physicists? We got them. You want dudes who are studying low-energy nuclear reactions in the United States? We got them. You want physics, you want wormholes, you want teleporting stuff? We got it. We got it all here. So this is saying, and though the interesting part about this, guys, was if you guys watched, or if you did not watch the cold fusion live streams that we did, the bad guy was a guy named Stephen Jones. Stephen Jones had worked for the Department of Energy. Stephen Jones also then went on to be a 9/11 truther, which actually doesn't hold anything against him. People can believe whatever the hell they want. But he ended up getting discredited later on because of that. But he was pushing this muon catalyst fusion. The one that's seen mentioned right, where is it? Somewhere right here. Right here. It says, has many common features with muon catalyzation. So we're going to have the best aliens. We're going to have the best fusion as well. It turns out a lot of different people were looking at the fusion problem differently. And it turns out maybe none of them were right. Maybe Ken Shoulders was right, and maybe all these other people were they were wrong. Maybe Pons and Fleischmann were wrong. Maybe it turns out that Stephen Jones was actually the most correct. Maybe Stephen Jones wasn't the bad guy. What if Stephen Jones, even though he worked for the DOE, was like, no, these guys' types of fusion is wrong. The real type it's like this muon catalyst. But actually, it's not like that at all. Maybe it's magnetic in nature. So that's why I wanted to pull this paper up. I'm glad I found this clip here, because this to me was the part where I was like, look, Jeremy says it's legit. This is the part where I was like, whoa, okay, wait. Maybe this is really what cold fusion is all about, is that we're not even looking at the problem correctly. And until we can accept that the ether is real, that there's this extra energy around us, we can never get the answer. We can never get to the real answer. Okay, so next paper. Okay, go back to Substack real quick. Oh, and so by the way, here's another list of a bunch of papers. You can see the link up at the top of the screen here. These are all Ken Shoulders papers. There's superluminal thing. The permittivity transition is here. Teleportation is here, etc. I'll throw it in the chat for you guys. Okay. Now on Bob's Substack, he's in the chat right now. He has these images as well right here. Now, these images are going to be important because in this other paper about time-free harmonic plasmoids or force-free time harmonic plasmoids, they talk about creating a vortex in your plasma that will stabilize your ball of plasma. And then if you do the math basically makes it so that this thing is just going to be a stable ball of plasma there. And you've got your vortex that's preventing it from collapsing, from dissipating. Now, another thing that Bob pointed out here, and I did not know who Holt was. So this is another person I'm going to look into, is that all these people were connected. So we've already known that Ken Shoulders connected to Hal Puthoff. But all these guys were on this breakthrough physics propulsion workshop at NASA. And we're going to ask Sal Pais about this on Sunday because people have speculated that he was at it because he was working at NASA Glenn as a graduate student at the exact time when this workshop was happening. And it turns out all this stuff they were researching in this workshop was all this 0 point energy stuff we've been talking about. Negative energy lasers, extracting energy from the quantum vacuum, plasma stuff, everything, all the stuff. Wow. Thank you very much, Scott. I appreciate you. Appreciate you guys. Thank you, Scott, for that donation. AC Holt proposed the intergalactic drive to NASA in 1979. So these people had already figured this stuff out. And we have just been trying to catch up. Oh, muons are where magnetism comes from? That's what people are saying? Okay. I don't really know much about these subatomic particles or what have you. I just, you get to a level where you can't see it and it just feels like very conceptual, which is fine. I have nothing against it. Okay. So that was an interesting post by Bob. The next one we want to look at is this one here. Okay. So this is our force-free time harmonic plasmoids. Now, good news for this one, guys. I already took some notes, so we don't have to watch me painfully go through this. Instead, we're going to flip over. Now, this is probably the most important one. Let me switch over and present this. There you go. Does this work? Okay. Okay, let's get into this chat. Okay, we're just about to get hardcore science now. So right off the bat, this paper here is Jack Nachampkin, 1992, Air Force. Frank Mead is the co-signer on this, project manager. Frank Mead is on every one of these UFO scientific papers, every single freaking one. Now, oh boy, where did I go with my? Okay, yeah, we're just gonna go bottom left to right here on this. This research was spurred by attempts to understand experimental results obtained in the late 1960s and 70s in areas of fusion weapons and laser fusion at Los Alamos. Okay, wow. Right off the bat, wow. They were disintegrating laser irradiated pellets and puzzles about the compression and stability of small spherical volumes of plasma in the presence of high-intensity electromagnetic fields. Okay, we've already hit the jackpot several times, and we're only one paragraph into this paper. So right off the bat here, we're like, okay, they were messing around with lasers, and they started producing spherical plasmas. And they started noticing something is not right about this. Why are these? They probably noticed these things. Why are these things floating around, and the energy, we're not putting any more energy into it? Because you imagine you create this ball of plasma and then you stop putting energy into it and it just keeps floating. You're like, okay, why is it doing that? Right? Okay, so one of the interesting things about this is that the Poynting vector is identically 0 everywhere inside a finite-sized force-free field. And it cannot dissipate either its boundary is radiating or internal stresses make it up, unless either its boundary is radiating or internal stresses break it up. So what we're finding out here is that they're saying this ball of plasma, like, it doesn't dissipate. For some reason, it's staying stuck the way that it is. It must be in some perfect equilibrium. It must be in some perfect equilibrium where it's stuck like that. One of the things that we're going to find, which I don't think is mentioned in here, is that it's directly connected to smoke rings. Smoke rings, when we're seeing these smoke rings blow out, or like we saw with the fluid and water with the smoke and it kind of dissipates, same idea, is that it's forming these shapes naturally, these toroidal shapes. Classically, these fields cannot exist in a vacuum. In a quintessent plasma, internal stresses on the accompanying currents can disrupt them as soon as they are created. So right away here, it's saying that this cannot be possible. If we were in an empty vacuum, this would not be possible. And that's why it's so important that Ken Shoulders realized that the ether was real in 1980. Because when he realized we were not in a real vacuum, he started realizing that plasma is going to be able to do stuff that we would not think is possible. So right off the bat, you're looking at this and you're going, oh, yeah, if this is possible, we're not in a real empty vacuum the way that it's being described to us. But if you've been watching me, that's like the least. You're already on board with that, most likely, if you've been watching me for a while. Okay. By a remarkable coincidence, the electromagnetic stresses themselves manifest themselves mainly as a pressure field, which can be nearly exactly balanced by a vortical fluid motion. Okay, guys, are you starting to see why this paper is so important? So what is that sentence saying right there? That sentence is saying that the static electricity that's being formed in this plasma is a pressure field, like gravity, for example. If gravity is an induced effect from the 0 point energy, you could argue that it's a pressure field based on the relative charges. So what it's saying here is that we are making a pressure field of gravity through this static electricity asymmetry, and we can offset it with a vortex, with a let's call it a tornado or a hurricane. We can make a vortex in there, and actually, someone's been reading ahead. Yes, Beltrami motion is exactly the motion they describe. I had to Google it. I had to Google like 5 different terms I didn't understand about plasma fluidity. But yes, thank you for spoiling it for everybody else. Beltrami motion, Hall effect, or what was the other one? I don't know. We're going to get to it. Okay. So what we're seeing here, whoever wrote this paper, Jack Nachamkin, they knew way more than, like, you don't write this paper unless you've seen some crazy shit. Like, this paper, like, is way too specific. Like, how are you writing about vortices offsetting electric charges and toroidal and spherical plasmas unless you've seen some shit, right? The author believes that the number of observed phenomenon, including ball lightning, fireballs, and charge clusters that occur in strong plasma discharges, may be described, at least in part, by plasmoids in this theory. Some of the nonlinear effects of powerful lasers impinging on small spheres of material might also produce plasmoids of the type to be described. Okay, that's pretty specific. Open questions of quantum and quantum electrodynamic effects and interactions with the electromagnetic 0 point background remain to be investigated. So right here, this is the subtext of this sentence right here is Basically, these things are getting energy from the 0-point fluctuations, but I can't write that in this paper because if I wrote this in this paper, then everybody would think that I'm a kook. And this goes to show you the people writing these papers know exactly what they can say to push the line of mainstream academia and physics. Oh, man. Hiccups. Okay. So here was the summary of their paper. They're talking about Maxwell's equation, saying that time harmonic solutions are possible. Now, when you think of time harmonic, I would say think of getting in resonance. Imagine you're vibrating back and forth, right? And then somebody else comes up to you and they got to get it in rhythm with you. That's how I look at it when I think of like time harmonic. You're going to get into a standing wave, a resonance. And here we go. Such solutions are postulated as a model for a long-lived spherical plasmoids. So they're basically saying that this time harmonic solution of Maxwell's equations allows for a long-lived spherical plasmoid. So when I'm talking to you guys about, like, we've figured out how to produce these balls of plasma, this is Jack Nachamkin in 1992. And we were, like, this is 30 years ago, 32 years ago. You don't think we've figured it out by now? Like, we've got AI now. This was a long time ago. I'm fine accepting that free energy balls is eventually brought to the mainstream. Blue ball, as long, yeah, I mean, we got to bring it to the mainstream. The only way we do it, like, we were never going to figure this shit out. We were never going to figure it. Let's just, guys, let's be honest. It's time for Ash and Rant. Let's be honest with ourselves. Humanity, we're kind of stupid. We're kind of primitive. We're kind of retarded. We were never going to figure out that these floating balls of plasma were something that humans could create. We were never going to figure that out until we were told that. They've done a pretty good job of hiding it from us. But the moment you see the damning evidence, like the real damning evidence, right? Like the moment somebody realizes this video is real right here, then you're like, okay, shit. Wait, what? Well, let me go back to all those ball lightning papers. And you look at them again and you're like, oh, okay. So the evidence is all out there. And that's exactly what you would expect from a cover-up, is that you would expect that there would be all this science that's out there that explains it. Like, there is long-lived spherical plasmoids. I mean, it doesn't say triangular-shaped plasma balls. It doesn't say square-shaped plasma balls. Spherical balls of plasma, right? We were never going to figure it out without that. But now that we've seen it, you can see how the whole house of cards comes down. Because now we've seen exactly what we're looking for, and now we're finding all the Air Force research papers and Sal Pais's patents and all this stuff that is basically saying all this stuff is real, right? Yeah, and I mean, what even is lightning? What even is lightning? Why does lightning even happen? Is another question that seems like, oh, it's just a dumb question to ask, but not really. Like we understand so little about energy. It's so important. Grapes in a microwave plasma. Yeah, we can look that up in a minute. But I still got a lot more to get through here. And I don't know how much. I mean, if we don't get to the questions of Salvatore Pais, it's going to be fine. Microwaving grapes in a plasma. Okay, this looks exciting. Oh, is my boy? Let me see. Oh, yes, it's him. It's him. It's Veritasium chat. Okay, we're definitely watching this. Guys, you guys know Veritasium's my favorite. And yes, the people saying like, oh, but if we're retarded, aren't we going to destroy ourselves? Yeah, probably. Probably. We should probably start thinking about that. Okay, let's skip ahead. Blah, blah, blah. Grapes in the microwave. How does a microwave work? Microwave shoots beams at stuff. Okay, we're going to microwave the grape. Wait, where's the part where we microwave the grape? Here we go.
Side by side will make this effect work, as long as they stay in contact.
So that's why in a lot of the videos you see there's a watch glass. So the reason the watch pass is there is to keep the grapes together.
Now, with the very strong electromagnetic fields at the intersection of the two grapes, what you can get is some sparks, some breakdown of air. That is, the electric fields are strong enough that they ionize the air, creating those sparks, and that is what leads to the plasma. It creates these ions, which can then receive more energy from the microwaves. You can see it here pulsing at 120 hertz. That's twice the 60 hertz frequency of mains power, which reflects the fact that the amplitude of the microwaves is pulsing twice every cycle. And what is that plasma made of? Well, the scientists looked at the spectrum of the plasma from a grape, and they found that there's a strong potassium emission line and also a sodium emission line. So it seems like those ions must be pretty common in the grape, and when the plasma gets formed, is those ions which are sprayed up into the air.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty neat. I'm glad we looked at that. That's pretty fun. Yeah. So, I mean, I think his name's Derek, actually. Veritasium guy. He's my favorite physicist out there because he actually asks, like, he knows all the mainstream physics stuff, but he really pushes the boundary and asks the questions that mainstream physics isn't asking. And questioning our understanding of things, like even the speed of light, where he questions whether or not what the one-way speed of light is. We've never really measured the one-way speed of light. We've only measured the two-way speed of light. So you can never really be able to tell if the speed of light is different going somewhere than coming back. Pretty huge concepts. Yeah, and so when a laser hits a grain of sand, just like we're seeing the microwaves hitting the grape there, you can actually produce plasma. Yeah. And I think the part that's being missed is, well, we don't need the high temperatures. We don't need high temperatures to pull this off. All this has to do with like electron flow, Casimir effect, offsetting the Coulomb repulsion. And with that, none of that requires temperature. So, here's your Beltrami form right here. So for the person who is getting ahead of the game, ruining it for everybody. So when they talk about this vortex, they say above the critical frequency, local perturbations of the current tend to increase the total energy, lending to stabilization. Below this frequency, the time harmonic current cannot be carried by the electrons in the plasma. So this is huge, guys. There is a critical frequency where the self-organization effect comes into play. Below that critical frequency, it doesn't work. It says here as well, the electromagnetic stresses induced by the fields on the current carrying electrons can be balanced to a high degree of accuracy by vortical motion of the supporting plasma. So you just have to spin the plasma in a vortex, and then it'll stay stable. The velocity field of the vortex also has the force-free Beltrami form. This vortical fluid motion is stable and exactly compatible with the stresses in the plasmoid. Although it is theoretically possibility for the currents to flow on the outside of the plasmoid to isolate it from magnetic fields, free space time harmonic fields can be found that they're both electric and magnetic fields parallel to each other over the surface of a spherical plasmoid, having a resonant size, making the fields continuous at the boundary. So normally magnetic and electric fields are not parallel to each other. So the fact that they're parallel to each other makes me think that what's happening here is that you're creating this natural barrier. And this is what we've been suspecting from the MH370 videos, is it's not a ball of glass. You're looking at a natural electromagnetic barrier where the electromagnetic fields are being bent in a way that it produces a magnetic monopole. Everything's just going in. That's what I'm pretty sure that's saying right there. I'm happy to be proven wrong. Nobody seems to want to prove me wrong on the physics side. Because I think a lot of people realize that this physics is real. People want it to be proven to them, which is totally reasonable. It's totally reasonable. So this next paragraph here talked about the plasmoids and their stability of them, and it says using a standing wave model is not new. And they also talk about this pinch effect here. The pinch effect is the thing I understand the least, but I'm pretty sure the pinch effect is what we're seeing when the plasma like arcs, look at the Tesla sign, and why it kind of comes back in, is that we're seeing this pinching happen where the electrons are flowing through that. I think that's what the pinch effect is. I think it's describing what we would see from the electron asymmetry. Asymmetry, again, just a fancy word for different on one side than the other. Okay. Kapitsa conjectured that ball lightning was explained by such a standing wave model, a model having a vortical field identical to a component of the electromagnetic field is not new either. Wells explored this model a number of years ago. What seems to be new is the combination of ideas to explain some aspects of the plasmoid phenomenon. After some mathematical preliminaries, it will be shown that time harmonic solutions to Maxwell's equations can have electric and magnetic fields as well as the current in the force-free form. It will be shown that the phenomenon of interest do not occur below a critical frequency. So what are we learning here? So we're learning we can make this ball of plasma. It will be self-organizing. It can potentially be self-stabilizing. We just need to find the exact right frequency that we're going to hit to create a standing wave within our plasma where it's homogeneous inside this plasma except for our pie slice or whatever of electrons that's flowing. Oh boy, it's a lot. Okay. This is the longest one, guys. And then we only have a couple things to follow up after this. Okay. So, these were the equations that I was showing. I kind of just kept these equations on here because I wanted to look at them again later when I understand this all a little bit better. But so basically they go through all the math, and when they're going through the math, they're going through how do I make this a stable ball of plasma that's force-free, and then what do I need to have for my vortex in order for it to balance out. And just like you would expect, there is, depending on the size of the plasmoid that you want, then the vortex is going to change in terms of how powerful the vortex needs to be. Yeah, I do need to ask about Langmuir waves or whatever. I looked into this before, some special kind of wave. So I'm just going to read some of the highlights. At any radius corresponding to a 0 of J1 alpha R, the force-free vector in equation 8 has no radial component. The importance for this property will become evident later. The name force-free came from the observation that in a DC direct current magnetic field, under vacuum conditions and satisfying equation 1 would have to arise from the volumetric current field that was parallel to the magnetic field at every point. So if that's confusing to you, then I did some grokking over here and said, okay, what is a DC magnetic field? DC magnetic fields are typically generated by direct current passing through a coil or a wire. For example, when electric current flows through a coil, it creates a magnetic field around it, similar to how a permanent magnet produces a magnetic field. Characteristics: static. The magnetic field does not oscillate or change direction like an alternating current magnetic field would. Uniform. In an ideal scenario, far away from the source, the field can be considered uniform in direction. So why is this big? Because we need a non-oscillating magnetic field. We need a magnetic field that's going to be static. We need a ball. We need our magnetic field to just radiate outward and be a perfect sphere and just float around. That's what we need. That seems pretty big. Okay, wait. Is there a strat to spreading the gospel? No strats. Just learn and teach others. How do we get on Joe Hogan? There is not a compiled list of all the research, but it's something that I'm, kind of looking into advancing. At the moment, I just have everything in our Discord. If you guys want an invite, I'll go ahead and make one as well. Okay, so this is an image right here of what looks like, if this is the flow of plasma, this looks very, very similar to what we've seen in other images of fusion reactions and what fusion reactions would look like. Which the vortical motion of the fluid or the fluid, the movement of the fluid in general is potentially going to be very similar in hot fusion and cold fusion if they're both using plasmas. Time travel, adverse butterfly effects, thinking this is happening. I don't know. Time is the thing I know the least about. But thank you very much for your donations, guys. I appreciate you guys. Let's see. And so this image too, depending on how you slice this image, may look very similar to what Bob Greenier was pointing out on his Substack. Since the stresses in such a system would be minimized, it follows that the energy directly associated with the magnetic field must be its extremum. The attempt is made to utilize this principle to design of a compact toroids and spheromax. Mentions actually spheromax here, not tokamak, but spheromax. Basically saying you could create a spherical fusion device. In these devices, an effort is directed to produce force-free plasma regions that will have long lifetimes and thereby be hospitable for thermonuclear reactions. So you can see a lot of the connections right here with fusion, cold fusion. So this science has been getting connected to fusion research the entire time. And then here is more about showing the force-free fields using the math. And basically they say here that if any one of the electric or magnetic or currents are force-free, then they are all force-free by definition, showing the math. I don't know why that's significant, but that's what they were showing there. Now, this one here shows that there's this critical frequency where once you hit this frequency, now the plasma acts differently. And this is just the page where they talk about that in general. And they have this nice little arrow sign here for you guys to check that out. This part here, this is an image that was on one of the pages. And the reason why I have this is what it says at the bottom here. It says a spherical plasmoid, and then you have this cavity. At the surface of a perfectly conducting cavity, the electric field of a TM mode is 0, with the corresponding magnetic field spatially identical in form to the plasmoid surface field. When I mentioned that the orbs are superconducting, perfectly conducting is the same as superconducting down here. So it turns out that you might need your orb of plasma to be superconducting. Oh, transverse magnetic. Thank you for that, quantum gravity. You were on point. So the transverse magnetic mode is 0. So I guess that could be a magnetic monopole then. Maybe that's what that's saying. I'm pretty sure that's what this is saying here. Anyway, that seems significant. So now we're also seeing why superconductivity is being suppressed, because superconductivity is this magic that's allowing all this stuff to happen. Yeah, the boundary conditions basically is that what's happening there is it's like they're making a wall between the plasma and the outside world, but it's just the wall itself is electromagnetic. It's a force field. Basically, they're making a force field. They've made a force field that disconnects the sphere from everything else around it. Now, here's the stuff about the electrons, doing the math on them. It says, I forget what PE is here. Oh, so a lot of this is talking about the charge density of the electrons. I don't know if I took a screenshot of it here. I'll just keep reading, but we'll see. The electrons carry the high frequency current in force-free plasmoids below the critical frequency. That is, if K is less than A, then the current must be carried by the ion. Since the ionic mass is so much larger than the electronic mass, this is clearly an impossibility. There's several conclusions that we can draw from this. The first is that a self-consistent force-free plasmoids cannot form under the critical frequency. When they can form, the free electron charge density must be uniform and increases quadratically with the frequency. Okay, that seems significant to me. Okay. Yeah, a lot of everything is about breaking down the quantum entanglement, but I don't subscribe at the moment to this idea that that consciousness is breaking down our reality. I don't know if we're quite at that level yet. Okay, here as well, as you can see, what looks to me, these are the effects of local charge perturbations, either going outward or inward in this graph here. We can consider the energy of self-interaction of the current in the plasmoid. Two side-by-side line currents of equal size and close proximity attract each other with a force proportional to the square of their current because the magnetic field between them has a smaller energy density than in the region on the outside. The magnetic pressure arising from the electromagnetic stress tensor pushes the wires together. So they're saying if you take two wires and you have them next to each other, they're going to pull together. They're going to pinch together. This is the origin of the pinch effect in plasma physics. Increasing the free electron charge in a plasmoid will increase the current, leading qualitatively to a volume pinch effect, tending to contract the volume of the plasmoid. Similarly, decreasing the charge density causes the pinch effect and leads to expansion. So there's two ways to think about this. One is you can think about this in terms of your plasma needs to have the right pressure. Otherwise, it's going to fall apart. The other way to think about this is the electrons within the plasmoid. Why are they in this T shape? Because we have this pinch effect where as the density increases here, you're seeing this pinching increase or decrease within the plasma itself, which I would imagine if you graph it out, it's going to look just like we see with that Tesla sign. Yeah, is this the Z pinch? Yeah, that sounds like familiar. I just don't know enough about it at the moment. Okay. So it says this increased contraction or decreased expansion seems to be an inherent instability of a plasmoid where statistical fluctuations of charge density might occur. So also what they're saying here is you need there to be uniform charge density. Otherwise, this thing is going to contract and expand and fall apart. Okay. Now, this next part is interesting. This was just a random paragraph. So this first term on the right can obviously lead to a gross motion of the center of mass of the electron. It says that the electromagnetic field can produce a volume stress in plasmas that appears to arise from a pressure proportional to the square of the electric field and inversely proportional to the square of the frequency. So what is it saying right here is that you can make a Casimir effect happen in your plasma. That's what it's saying. It's saying you can create a permittivity change in your region of space, just like Ken Shoulder's permittivity transitions paper that we were just reading. That's what this is saying right here. Literally says right there, change your pressure right there, stress in the plasma. So you can manipulate the permittivity of space right there. And a few more. And then I got to pull it up. Okay. Note for the fixed values of whatever this E sign is. I haven't seen this weird E sign. I don't think that's U sub naught. W is inversely proportional to R, and the maximum electric field intensity varies inversely with the plasmoid's radius. So I was reading through this, and they give an example later on, and the energy increases the bigger the plasma ball gets, which makes sense. So even though the plasma ball is going to increase, though, I don't think the energy density increases exponentially. I think it increases linearly. Could be wrong on that. This is the part where I might need a little bit of help with. I wasn't sure understanding it, what they meant, but for the most part, the energy level is going to increase in totality the bigger our ball of energy gets. And from what we saw from the other papers, this ball of energy, they can get extremely, extremely high. And this is also what Salvatore Pais's patent says. regarding high energy electromagnetic field generator. So let's go to the paper, because there's a couple other segments that I wanted to hit on that are actually really big that I haven't touched on yet. So that was just up to page like 24. And parts that I wanted to get to, oh boy, it's going to be hard. I should have took some better notes on this. Oh, here we go. This is one of them. Assumption 2 says that only the pressure gradients that can remain in the plasmoid after the vortical motion cancels the electromagnetic pressure must arise from thermodynamic gas pressure. That means temperature changes in gas. Assuming an atmosphere surrounding the plasmoid exerts an isotropic pressure, the internal thermodynamic pressure must match this for stability. After surface current effects are included. In large systems, PE will probably arise from the surrounding gas pressure. In small systems, there may be a component of pressure from a Casimir force. Casimir forces will arise in situations where, owing to the high conductivity of the plasma due to the large number of free electrons, components of the electromagnetic zero-point background energy cannot penetrate uniformly into the plasma. This will result in a lower energy density within the plasmoid and an apparent pressure gradient due to the vacuum. Yahtzee, chat. Can you just say with me, Yahtzee, chat? There it is, right there. That's everything. If you guys are not following right now, let me wake you up a second. The first thing it says right here is that your plasma ball should be the same temperature as the background atmosphere. It says it right there. You want to have your plasma ball be the same temperature as the background atmosphere. Let's go back to the thermal drone video, guys. When we're looking at this thermal drone video, look at what temperature the ball of plasma is. The ball of plasma is the same temperature as the background. It's the same temperature as the atmosphere, except for in the area of the charge, the electron density cluster, which is the yellow area. The yellow area in the plasma is where all the free electrons are at. The blue area is the neutral area that's equivalent to the background that we see down below. We wanted to understand, why is this thing this temperature? Why is it blue like this? Now we understand why. This paper is saying this is how you create your self-contained spherical ball of plasma. It needs to be in thermal equilibrium with the bubble itself, needs to be in thermal equilibrium with the background. If it's not perfectly right, it's going to fall apart. It's going to fall apart. It's not actually cold. That's the thing. It's just the same temp. It's room temperature. It's the same temperature as the background. If it was cold, it would be black. If it was warmer, it would be green or white. But we see it's blue. It's actually blue. And when we zoom in, where's the zoom in version? I want to show it very clearly, because like these videos are the biggest leaks in military history. These are the biggest leaks in military history, guys. You're staring at right now the biggest leak of weapon technology, whatever, in human history. No, we were never going to figure this out without these videos being leaked. I mean, look at these balls of plasma. Look at the temperature on them. They're the same as the background. Look at that temperature on that orb. It's almost identical to the background. This is why. This is why, guys. Crazy. Now, this is why, like, I didn't understand why Bob Grenier, who he's still in the chat right now, like, why was Bob Grenier reviewing these videos? When I first saw him reviewing these videos, I didn't understand why. I'm like, why is a guy who's low energy nuclear reactions looking at these videos? And now you're looking at the science and you're going, oh shit. Bob Grenier's like, whoa, this orb is the same temperature as the background. And I remember he said this in his first video, he points out, you can see that the temperature is the same as the environment. It's blue, just like that. And the more you look at it, you're like, no one, who could even fake this? The number of people on the planet that could fake this is like zero. There's just nobody. Nobody had this understanding of plasma physics, because this is showing a topological, as Bob Greener would say, or magnetic monopole that's being produced. That's why we're seeing the sphere, just like is being described in this scientific paper that we're staring at right here. Crazy. Even mentions the 0 point energy right here. Even says, if you have so many free electrons, the question is, how is this happening? How is this happening here with these orbs? Because there's so many free electrons in these balls of plasma spinning around the plane that it's squeezing out the 0 point energy from that region. That region, the 0 point energy is getting squeezed out of that region, and it's creating a bubble. We have a lower permittivity region of space-time because the 0 point energy is being pushed out. It's doing a Casimir effect. The Casimir effect, again, is just pushing out 0 point energy from the region using plates. We found another way to do it. You can do it with a huge amount of free charge. You probably don't need plasma to do it, but plasma is just the easiest way to pull it off with a high amount of scale. So this is the secret, guys. I'm giving you guys the secret sauce like right now. Like, this is it. The secret sauce here is you use the Casimir effect and you squeeze out the 0 point fluctuations from a region of space. That's what it's saying right here and what it's doing. Because there's then a lower energy density within the plasmoid, there will be a pressure gradient that's going to occur. Pretty neat, huh? Okay. Next few things I want to look at. There's quite a few zingers still in here, but the part at the end I think is the best that I wanted to go over with you guys. Is it this part right here? Here it is. Okay. This part. There's a very special case that is worth mentioning, even though the possibility of its physical existence may be apocryphal. At the critical frequency, where our omega here is equal to, I think that's C alpha, the current and charge densities become zero. It follows that a force-free electromagnetic excitation could exist in otherwise empty space. The energy would be contained within a spherical region terminated by a set of boundary currents and could not radiate away. Classically, there is no limit to the energy density that might be confined in such an electromagnetic mode if the outside influences are large enough to contain the stresses on any surface currents that would be needed to match the boundary conditions. If such an object could exist, the limit on the field strengths would be near the point where the vacuum polarization due to the virtual electron-positron pair production was affected. Yeah, that's a boom. So Bob knows that's a boom. Why? Because that's basically saying right there that in this limit, if we were to produce this magnetically confined sphere of plasma, there is no limit to the amount of energy mathematically that could be contained within that region. No limit. No limit's a big number. But yes, it did mention the positron pair. So why is this important? Because the electron-positron pair formation occurs when? At the Schwinger limit. When you hit the Schwinger limit, that's our ceiling. We hit our head against the brick ceiling, right? Can't break through. That's the Schwinger limit. We got this Schwinger limit up here. So there might be a limit. Maybe the Schwinger limit is the limit, at which point you've opened up your hole to the ether as wide as that's going to go. and you're yanking out energy out of the fastest possible rate. Very interesting. So now we're starting to see, why is the Pais effect so important? It's so important because Salvatore Pais looked at this science, and we're going to talk to him about it on Sunday. Clearly, he saw that we can break beyond the limit, or we can break beyond the Schwinger effect. We can achieve energy densities that can break through the Schwinger and cause the Schwinger limit to get hit. And this here is saying that we can get unlimited energy. The math at least says that there's no limit. We can contain in this region of space any amount of energy we want. That's a scary thing, because a lot of people tell me, Ashton, why are you so sure we're going to destroy ourselves? This is why. This is why I'm so sure we're going to destroy ourselves. This paragraph right here. Say goodbye. You know, there's no limit. Yeah, beyond the limit, things become non-linear, just like non-linear optics. And this is why Elia Prigogine becomes so important. Why was Salvatore Pais talking about Elia Prigogine? Because Prigogine says that when you get far from linear, far from equilibrium, you will see a negative energy reaction, a neg entropy reaction, like space reorganizes itself. It's like you pulled too far on the curtain, and now the curtain's yanking itself back. Very weird. And this is then opens the door to this idea of negative energy. Like, we are in this equilibrium. If you rip through that equilibrium, the equilibrium tries to go back to its normal state. And this is why I talk about we're in the matrix. Like, we're literally in the fucking matrix, people. Like, quite literally. But I want to point out one more time, this is a very important clip. We need this clip, guys.
Not what you guys keep thinking I'm a religious leader. This isn't a religion. This is actual truth. I'm a scientist in real life, but this isn't real life. This is a video game. You at least understand that much, right? This is a video game. But you said I'm your grandson. I'm saying everyone here, everyone in this world but me. You're all my grandson. Your name is Morty. You're stuck in a video game, and I'm here to get you out. What about me? Am I your grandson? I just said everyone is. Wow, incredible. Okay, but don't react like that. It's not a religion. This is what is happening. You and me and your sister are at an arcade called Blips and Chits. It's been taken over by terrorists, the power went out, the game restarted, and your identity has been splintered into all the non-player characters. So I jacked in as Roy, that's the player character, to get you, my grandson Morty, out of the game before it's over and you die. Okay, question over here. Am I your grandson? Jesus, yes! Every single one of you is 1/5 billionth of Morty. All of you, collectively, are Morty. Look, I don't want to seem impatient, but there's actually a lot more that we have to get done. So if this is how hard it's going to be, we are in a lot of trouble.
So basically, guys, I'm Rick. You guys are all Morty. We're trying to get out of the simulation. We're stuck in a simulation here. You're all Morty. Yes, you're Morty. Yes, Billy No Downside. You're Morty too. Zachary, you're Morty. You're all my grandsons. No one check out early. We gotta do this the right way. Everybody, don't panic. It might be a simulation. It's not a religion. It's not a religion, chat. Okay. There's a couple more interesting paragraphs here. Let's see. Where was it? Sorry, I forgot to take some notes on this. So I'm just taking a look. Oh, guys, why is everyone freaking out with the donations these recently? Am I going on Tucker? Probably not. But if I do go on Tucker, I'll probably bring Sal Pais with me, because he said he wanted to. Yeah, a lot of people want to do documentaries, but if you're going to do something that's sponsored by me, reach out to me first. If you want to do your own thing, feel free to go nuts. Use anything that's publicly available. Yep. Orbs going hard. I tried to reach out to Bob Lazar. Could not get a hold of Bob Lazar. Yes, you're Morty. Okay, yeah, Bob wants us to check out page 32, 34, and 35. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate you, brother. Let's talk soon. I need to do another interview with Bob soon as well. 32. Yeah, okay. 32 is where we're at here. Let's see. What was it here? I think he's talking about here. Oh, yeah, here we go. Okay. There may be waves whose space-time symmetry severely limits their ability to propagate in the usual manner. These waves do have sources, but the compact support of these waves may be a very complicated function of the retarded fields. Chat, don't cancel me. In the literature, such waves have been called diffractionless or phase conjugated waves. Phase conjugation, chat. Phase conjugation. Electromagnetic missiles, I've never heard that term, or Bessel beams. A force-free plasmoid unterminated by surface boundary currents may fall into this category. So what he's saying here is that we might be using retarded fields. I couldn't resist. Phase conjugation might be what allows for these force-free plasmoids. So this really is going to boil down to waves and having these waves canceling each other out and creating these, like, quite literally gravitational ripples through a region of space-time that's contained within the magnetic non-radiating barrier. I think these are all real words that I'm using, chat. If not, I'm sure somebody will fact check me. Okay, the next page here. Oh, thank you. And yeah, thanks, Bobby's Gems. I appreciate it, brother. I appreciate it. The space around the original now decaying plasmoid would fill with ultimately outgoing energy. The exact form of the outgoing radiation that in principle can be calculated. It may then in principle be possible, knowing the outgoing field quantities on a fixed surface, to establish an externally generated electromagnetic field setup that can have a standing wave that exactly compensates for the losses at the surface of the decaying plasmoid. A model very close to this is described by Capizia. Okay, so now we're seeing that there's this model by Capizia, and they're saying that, boom, we just create a standing wave, and this is going to automatically create our self-sustaining plasma. Like, all we have to do is create this standing wave, and if we do so, boom, we're going to have this self-organizing plasma. Wow. So now we've really narrowed it down. Like, now it's like, oh, we just create this standing wave and it's going to create this plasma sphere automatically around it. Now this is something that we can turn into a tiny little device. Because again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get to the root cause of it. Like, this is real cold fusion. This is what people should be researching. Not, oh, put some palladium rods in water and then wait for it to boil in a month. No, we should be trying to figure out, like, what's the root cause of this concept. That's what we're looking at now. Let's see. Yeah, it says matching plasmoid boundary conditions. At the surface of the plasmoid, the E and the H of the electric and magnetic fields are parallel and tangential to the surface. Let's see. Yeah, so basically it says here that we can create this boundary condition that we're looking for without violating laws of physics as we know them at all, which is huge. Let's see. What's the next part? Okay, the general question of terminating at the surface of a plasma cannot be answered easily without more work. Anecdotal evidence seems to indicate that the autonomous plasmoids responsible for ball lightning do not have external supportive fields that need to match stringent boundary conditions, but measurements are virtually non-existent. On the other hand, workers in Japan have produced plasmoids with exceptionally long lifetimes in cavities sustained by microwave generators. Whether either of these examples can be achieved by force field time harmonic waves remains to be seen. So this part here is basically saying whether or not we like have to potentially continue to put energy into this, or if they're just going to become self-autonomous in terms of driving around. Okay, we're getting to page 35, guys. This is the next page. Chill out. So, but this is important because some people say, well, do I need to have something beaming onto these balls of plasma all the time? And the answer here is maybe not. Maybe, but maybe not. So that's big. Okay, page 35. We'll just read all page 35 because I don't remember which part. From a practical point of view, the plasma can be thought to be a linear system responding to Ohm's law in the form of J equals omega or sigma omega E, where J and E are complex. Okay. In the high frequency limit, K approaches infinity as a plasma has asymptomatic specific capacitance equal to the vacuum permittivity. At higher frequencies, this is equivalent to a low impedance, meaning that the high field strengths might be required to initiate small energetic plasmoids. So here it's saying we might need extremely powerful fields in order to cause the plasmas to ignite. So again, it's like learning how to create fire. We're learning how to create fire here. We need these very powerful electromagnetic fields. But once we do that, we can potentially just light up a plasmoid. Alternatively, the plasmoid could be thought of as a lossless dielectric material. So if so, then it says that the effective permittivity here, which is E, the sigma effective here on the left, it's possible that that can be lower than E sub naught, which is the vacuum permittivity of free space. And what this would mean is that there's a superluminal phase velocity. It means the speed of light is going to change as it goes through the boundary. So what this is saying is that the speed of light is going to change as you go through this boundary, just like if I were to take a glass of water and stick a stick in it, you're going to see it bend. If you were to look at it from the side, you're going to see it bend when it goes in the water. That's the same thing you're going to see here. Something similar to this. So this superluminal phase velocity here is we're changing the speed of light. We're quite literally changing the speed of light within the sphere of the plasmoid. This is probably the biggest Yahtzee out of the whole thing. Yes, exactly. It's faster than speed because if you're reducing the permittivity, then you're increasing the speed of light. And then if you're going faster than the speed of light, what does that mean? What does it actually mean? You're teleporting, right? Teleporting. I'll post a Discord invite one more time for you guys. Yeah, you're changing time. You're quite literally changing time. And so now we're starting to understand the physics of how a UFO operates, right? This is how a UFO is operating. They're not cheating the laws of physics. I mean, they kind of are. They're using real physics. They're using real physics. They're changing the permittivity of space itself because space is not empty. If space is not empty, it's not an empty vacuum, then the permittivity of space is not a constant. It's a variable that changes based on the energy density in that region of space. And if we change the energy density in a region of space, we're going to create a bubble. That's what we're doing with these EVOs. We're creating a bubble. And really, time is what we're manipulating. We're manipulating time. They're time machines. Quite literally, like Jason Giorgiani is saying, they're time machines. Okay, and then what else does it say? The plasmoid region will have an internal vortical motion that will cancel the tendency to expand due to the electromagnetic pressure. So this thing's going to be trying to expand, but the vortex, the tornado in it, is going to force it to stay together. So clearly someone has figured this out. I mean, this is 1992. So then a remarkable accident may therefore exist in nature where a non-propagating electromagnetic field and a special vortical field fluid with the same function, neither of which can exist separately, can combine to produce a long-lived, high-energy density plasmoid. So there you go. This opens the door to these things being possible in nature. This could be a natural phenomenon. So when they start talking about like, They could be aliens could be extra dimensional. Like, to me, this is if that's true, this is definitely what they're talking about. Is that a plasma ball could be a conscious entity that maybe never lives for thousands of our years. Who knows? Now, this is important. No radiation can escape from the surface of the plasmoid to first order at the frequency W. Radiation may occur at harmonics of W due to the oscillatory motion described by equation 57. This radiation may have a detectable, distinct, but perhaps not unique signature. So, to produce plasmoids described in this note, the following steps must be included. Closed spherical vortices must be produced. Desired levels of ionization. Ionization is pulling electrons off of atoms, must be maintained. So you have to have a rate of ionization of electrons being added to your system, equivalent to the ones that are being lost. Electromagnetic energy must be produced within the plasmoid. You must be producing electromagnetic energy for the plasmoid to be self-sustaining. Makes sense? Okay. Am I missing anything else? From what has been derived in this note, a possible scenario can be envisioned for the creation of a spherical plasmoid. A very strong discharge occurs in an ionizable gas in the presence of a high-frequency electromagnetic field. The pinch effect due to the discharge initiates a compression, which turns into a swirling vortex. At the right level of ionization, the external time harmonic field is expelled from the vortical region, and radiation from the column of the discharge inside the vortex at the same frequency as the external fields cannot escape. At the end of the discharge, a highly energetic plasmoid emerges that has nearly as much kinetic energy as internal electromagnetic energy, creating a quintessent ambient gas with a low kinematic viscosity. The plasmoid will slowly come up to a speed that is compatible with its tangential gas velocity. At early times, the plasmoid could appear to move very slowly and may respond to ambient gas flows. To me, this is wild right here. This basically just says, like, we create this pinch effect in the gas, and it naturally forms a plasma sphere around it. And that's exactly what we're looking at in the videos. So the U.S. Navy has figured this out. U.S. government, defense contractors figured out plasma technology, and we're just not calling it UFO technology. We're just calling it like plasma physics. But if you were to like really dig into it, you realize this isn't hot plasma research that we're doing here. This is cold plasma. This is cold fusion plasma stuff that we're doing here. It's like we are still doing cold fusion. We're just calling it something else. Yeah, if radiation is produced, it would not be indefinitely sustainable. Exactly. That's why you notice in a lot of this, in this paper, it's talking about that it doesn't radiate anything. And if it does, they even point out that if it does radiate, there must then be an input to offset that radiation, because otherwise you're going to have an instability form. And so really at the end of the day, the question that arises from this is, how long is your plasma going to last? Can the sphere last for days? Can it last forever? Is it going to last a few hours? I don't think we've answered that question. And that would be the area where we would want to do more research and find out, are they infinitely lasting? Is it like life? Or are they only going to last for a few minutes? All of these are still possible. Thank you for these donations, guys. Appreciate it. Appreciate these donations. I would start, if you want to start with the physics, I would start with Veritasium's videos, because Veritasium teaches you the fundamental physics, but teaches you in a way that you will not learn if you were to go to school and learn it. They're going to teach you the wrong way to view the universe. They'll teach you the right math. They're going to just teach you the wrong way to view the universe. And that's a big difference. So that's where I would start with that. And then you start digging into some of these more difficult concepts that we've been looking into. Take it piece by piece. You know, it's a journey. It's not a rush. The biggest thing is you have to be interested in the topic, in the science. If you're not interested in it, you're not going to want to learn it. You got to want to learn it. Okay. So there we go. Let's go look at some of this other stuff that I've got. So am I sure that plasma is the answer to this UFO stuff? Yes, I'm sure. I don't think all this stuff out here would be existing unless this stuff was the answer. The next thing we're going to look at is we're going to see, how do we build it? How do you actually make it? So ball lightning physics study. Let me pull this up. Actually, oh boy. Is it just called ball lightning study? I'm realizing like I don't even think I have it. Like, hold on. Ball lightning study. Man. And here's the thing. A lot of these papers are not super easy to find. You would think that if I'm Googling it, it should be the #1 hit. Rarely is that the case, actually. Okay, so here's the ball lightning study. Now, in our ball lightning study, fast forward 10 years later, guys. 2003, Eric W. Davis, ball lightning study. You guys have seen a lot of my stuff. Hey, Ocean. You guys have seen a lot of stuff about Eric Davis. I posted a lot about it. So Eric Davis is writing this paper. And again, it's for Air Force Research Labs. And in this paper, is it Frank Mead again? Look, it's Frank Mead again, everybody. Look, same guys on the Jack Nachampkin paper. Now, in this paper, he's writing all about ball lightning. And notice down here, electrostatic charging of air impurities, plasmoid and plasma vortex ring, microwave radiation powered modules. Oh, look, down here, chapter 4, the Nachampkin plasmoid model, force-free time harmonic plasmoids. Experiment #1. Experiment #2. Experimental facilities. Okay. Wow. Look at this. So I guess let's just go to, like, you know, page 9. So now, are you guys seeing, like, look at this, how, like, I think that anybody that was like an impartial investigator that digs into this, at this point, you got to look at it and you go, okay, why is there so much stuff about ball lightning and all this plasma stuff? Because if you start to look into it, you realize it's all connected to 1989 Pons and Fleischmann's announcement of cold fusion. And you realize it constantly is not talking about temperature being a requirement. It's a different type of plasma. Now, right here, plasmoid in the plasma vortex ring. Look that he's talking about Bostic here. Bostic is the one that Ken Shoulders worked with. Plasmoids were first discovered by Bostic to be equilibrium configurations of a compact geometric structure composed of plasma whose form and stability is determined by the magnetic field it carries along with itself. In order for the lifetime of this ball lightning model to be long enough to match observations, the plasma energy density must be high. Well, remember, what did we just read? We just read that the theoretical amount of energy density that can fit in the sphere of plasma is infinite. Many theoretical and experimental observations were done on the plasma vortex phenomenon. Bostic, this other guy explored the concept. I think he mentioned some other people as well. Oh, here's Bergstrom. So here's Bergstrom right here. This is actually the guy right here. 1973 replaced magnetic confinement of the plasmoid with a strong dielectric diamagnetic attraction that overcomes the repulsion of electric charge by a strong short-ranged interaction. Oh boy, chat. This right here, Ken Shoulders said this guy's paper, that 1973 paper, was the paper that made Ken Shoulders realize that there really was an ether. This paper, I have the quote somewhere around here. This paper right here, the one I have highlighted by Bergstrom, he says in 1980, Ken Shoulders read this paper by Bergstrom and realized there was an ether. And this paper by Bergstrom, look what it's about. It's about a strong, attractive force that's overcoming the repulsive electric charge that would normally happen. Now, let's get to the good stuff, okay? You guys are probably tired of this. You've been watching this whole stream. You've been wondering, when are we going to get to the sauce, Ashton? I just wanted to see if there was any Puthoff references in here. Let's get down to the good stuff. Finkelstein. Okay. Okay, so he does a bunch of math. Oh, wait. Here we go. One of the last ball lightning models that loosely falls within the present category is one proposed by Nechampkin in 1992. We just read the whole paper. It is a model for a self-contained microwave plasmoid vortex resonance described in terms of the theory of time harmonic electromagnetic fields having the force-free form for their electric field, magnetic field, and for the current. This model is the primary focus for this study and will be discovered or discussed in the next chapter. So, Hal Puthoff wrote this, or sorry, Eric Davis wrote this whole paper about Nechampkin's paper. That's what he's saying in that paragraph. This whole thing is why Eric Davis wrote this, and here it is. Here's the whole thing. And we just read through most of this, so I'm going to skip through some of this, but basically saying this is a solution to Maxwell's equations, has the Beltrami force-free form. It says that you're using this Kapitsa standing wave plasmoid model to use this vortical model that's going to compensate for the electromagnetic field at the critical frequency. Current cannot be carried by the electrons and the plasma decays. While above this frequency, local perturbations tend to increase, leading to stabilization. So Eric Davis basically is just copy and pasting out of that other paper right here. Then he even talks about the pinch effect here. He notes that the model may not describe all species of plasma excitations. The model is incomplete because it does not address the manufacture of a force-free plasmoid or the nature of the external fields it interacts with. So what he's saying here is that there are some, they have not completed the model, but it's a pretty good starting point. It is not certain if the ionization and recombination process can influence the pinch effect stability by driving changes in the plasmoid charge density. So what they're saying there is that it's not certain if we rip the electrons off or add the electrons neutralized back onto their atoms, not sure if that would have an effect. Could. And then it starts talking about, he does some math here in terms of the size. And I think he finds the energy density of a 10 centimeter wide one. Long story short, energy density is very, very large. Okay. So, so he says that we can make these, we can produce these things, and it's theoretically possible in the lab to produce this stuff. So here's the experiments. So the first experiment here, he says, is literature that came into focus from the experimental work of Hoberg and Vogel in 1961, expanded on by Wells and Schmidt. Okay, their experiment reported the plasma gun formation of an axially symmetric force-free plasmoids containing trapped electromagnetically confined toroidal and poloidal magnetic, electric, and velocity fields. A standing wave resonant cavity was not needed to accomplish the formation of the force-free plasmoids in this experiment. We propose this to be a key experiment with which Nachamkin force-free plasma model can be tested. This experiment is excellent because with certain modifications, it can be exploited for developing plasmoid weapon or rocket propulsion test articles. Okay. So here you guys go. Here's the first experiment right here. I'm actually not going to read through this whole thing because it's long. Instead, I'm just going to show it to you on the screen here. You can pause it. You can check it out. This is also the ball lightning paper. And here's all the things that you need. 4mm microwave bridge, 4mm microwave bridge for some other thing, shielded magnetic pickup loop, floating double probes, external pickup loop, a recording framing, fast ionization gauge, computer-based optical spectrometer, and digital thermometer. So those are some of the things that you need right there. Here's a graph of it. There you go. Graph. Remember when people were like, hey, where are the instructions? Well, turns out the ball lightning paper had the instructions in them all along. You're staring right at it. Here's another graph of it. Shows you the vacuum changer, the plasma ring that they're producing here. This is the plasma gun that was produced in 1964. Now, what is the cost associated to this experiment? Okay. There's one plasmoid structure formed for each half cycle of the punch coil oscillation. So they're going to be creating these little plasmoids within this contained environment. Experiment 1 costs. Here's all the costs. There's some pretty expensive things on here. Total costs, $110,000 to $120,000. There it is. And then the estimated labor is another $40,000. So the total cost is $150,000 to $160,000. And this is in $2,003. It's 2024 now, so it's probably double this amount, maybe even more. So $250,000 for this experiment. $250,000 for that one. So now you're starting to see some of the impacts here. It's just to have an experiment where you're producing the plasmoids. You're looking at $250,000 in labor and cost. Now, experiment number 2, this is an alternative experimental option that was discovered that affords an excellent chance to test the Nachamkin model by a modified Kapitsa type experiment involving free floating plasmas generated in a microwave resonance cavity operating at high pressure. This experiment was originally designed to explore the promise of microwave heated rocket engines for future propulsion systems. We propose this to be the second key mechanism. Okay. So anyway, there's this second mechanism. Here's their things that they need. Here is the resonant cavity. This is how they have got their second setup. Yes, you're my grandson. No, I'm not crowdfunding stuff. I just want to teach people. Okay. And I want to specifically show people that the science is out there. That it's out there. I mean, this is stuff that people could build, right? So here's another graph. Now, this one is cheaper. This one is only $87,000 plus $40,000 in labor. So $127,000. So either way you shake it, these things are going to cost you probably $250,000 just to do the experiments. You're not even building anything, just an experiment. Okay. And here are the experimental facilities that are capable of doing these experiments already. Air Force Research Laboratory, Edwards Air Force Base. Look, Institute for Advanced Studies in Austin. This is Earth Tech. This is Hal Puthoff's paper. So wait, Hal Puthoff has a lab. They actually have a real lab there where they're doing this experiments. No wonder. Of course they do. Look at this one. Hathaway Consulting. This is George Hathaway. Remember we looked up George Hathaway and we found out he was doing all these experiments on all this stuff? There he is. Los Alamos. So it's like, imagine your company gets listed next to Los Alamos at a place where you could do this plasma research. Johns Hopkins University, Pennsylvania State, University of Nevada, Las Vegas. So, okay. Yeah, pretty weird that Earth Tech is listed on this. I knew Jeremy would appreciate that. Kind of weird, right? I mean, guys, Hal Puthoff's the Godfather, and like Eric Davis is his deputy, man. Eric Davis is his deputy. These guys know about this plasma stuff. Like 100% they know. In fact, they're probably terrified of talking to me because, as you guys are going to see with my talk with Salvatore Pais on Sunday, I'm not pulling any punches on this. In fact, I think we're ready to go to the next thing. Actually, there's one more thing we're going to look at. Well, there was two more things, but okay. So one of the things was Hill's spherical vortex in a rotating fluid. I looked at this Hill's spherical vortex in a rotating fluid, and it looks very similar to this signature that we keep seeing, this heat signature of fusion, where it's like this Tesla sign that we're seeing. So that seems to check out. And then we're going to look real quick at this extracting energy. But I want to talk quickly about the Hal Puthoff thing, or Salvatore Pais thing. So now I'm glad I was able to research and look into all of this EVO stuff, because clearly Salvatore Pais is connected to these balls of plasma. Like, we're going to figure, it's just a matter of figuring out what the connection is. So how do you figure out what the connection is? Number one, we first need to establish his background. I've watched a bunch of interviews with Sal, but nobody really says like, hey, dude, what have you been doing since you graduated from Case Western University and you were like working at NASA Glenn, where it's been suspected that they were producing some kind of alternative propulsion. Like, what has he been doing in the 14 years between those times? So we're going to ask, and we're going to confirm Sal's background. We are going to show Sal the videos, and I'm going to ask specific questions about when he first saw the MH370 videos, who brought them to his attention, and what his impressions are when he's watching those videos. Because let's just be honest, if you look at Sal's patents, they are those videos, the MH370 videos. Like, we are looking at Sal's patents in those videos. So what is going on? What is actually going on? Are Sal's patents operable? Did the Navy already build them? When did they build them? These are the questions that we're going to start with Sal. So we're going to figure out, first of all, his background. We are going to get his assessment of the MH370 videos, of just the physics on display. I'm not going to be going into, oh, why did the plane get taken or whatever. I don't care about that. That's not what I'm asking Sal about. I want to know, yes, when was the first time Sal saw the MH370 videos? And has he seen other videos like them? Because any physicist that, in my opinion, looks at these videos, and if they're in the know, if they're one of us, so to speak, they're going to look at this video and they're going to say, that's negative energy that I'm looking at right there. They're going to say, that's negative energy. The reason why you're seeing the negative energy is because 0-point energy view of the universe is correct. And that's what they're going to point out. He's going to point out the heat signatures probably as well. There's a lot of stuff that somebody who's in the know is going to be able to answer. Like, Sal's going to say, oh, that heat signature is consistent with your Beltrami and Hall distributions or whatever. He's going to say something like that, right? So that's why we can ask a lot of different questions that are going to let us know if Sal knows what's going on in these videos, like if he's built something related to it. We don't even need to get a direct answer. That's the best part. And then, yes, the next part is going to be confirming his patents are operable. I mean, literally one of the Navy guys said that Sal's patents are operable. In a letter, they had their lawyers going after the patent office. The Navy's lawyers would not be going after the patent office if Sal's patents were like disinformation. They just wouldn't care that much. They'd be like, oh, you ignored our patents that aren't real. Okay, so what? So we are going to get some confirmation. I'm going to ask straight up, is your patent operable? Are they operable? where did the inspiration for these patents come from? Like, we need to dig in and start finding out some real answers about the operability status of this technology and how long the US government's had it. And this is why getting a timeline for Sal. Also, we're just going to find out, is Sal Pais like an indentured servant to the United States government? Did we like import him from another country and just make him an American and be like, well, you're an American scientist now, gets to working for the US Navy? I'm starting to get a bad feeling about it. Like, actually starting to get a bad feeling about it. Like, we might have like human trafficking going on in this story, chat. Or like, imagine Sal Pais was like brought over from Romania and we've just like, yep, you're an American now. He gets to working on secret plasma orbs. Like, I hope that's not where this story is going. I hope not, chat. Okay. They do literally have a history of doing that, though. They like quite literally have a history of doing that with Project Paperclip. So it's a non-zero chance, like quite literally a non-zero chance. Okay, so yeah, everybody's on the Operation Paperclip. Yeah, we literally did it. So we're going to ask about that. Let me look at my list of questions here. I don't want to give away all my questions today, guys, but do a couple others. Where's my damn list? Oh, here we go. Yeah, so we're going to ask about Jim Sheehy, which is the guy that supported him, said the stuff was operable. We're probably going to ask about this clip. I'm going to play this clip right now. Oh, we need to ask about the letter that he had Dave Rossi read. So, there was a letter that Dave Rossi read out that was from Sal, where Sal says he believes in human technology. So for people that are my alien fans out there or whatever, we are going to get some alien questions in. I'm going to figure out if Sal believes that these orbs that are out there are produced by us or if they are produced by aliens or whatever the hell they might be produced by. I really don't know. We are going to ask him that. We're going to ask what he meant when he had Dave say that he believes in human technology. That was an interesting thing to state. Almost made me think that Sal was saying, like, we are going to fight back against the alien technology with human versions of it. If that's the direction we're going, guys, I'm ready for it. I'm ready for the Manticore human hybrids and all the stuff, man. Like, just bring it on at this point. Like, you know, just drop it on me. Okay. So we're going to ask about that. We are going to ask about like the HEEMG patent, which is the one that's breaking the Schwinger limit. And there's this clear connection now. We have a direct connection. Oh, he said they're definitely ours. Oh, thank you for getting that. Okay. Yeah, so we are making, so then the question is, I guess that to add on to that, is there something inside? Like, there must be an object inside the orbs, right? Or are they being, is the energy coming from external sources? I imagine there's something on the inside, and then that can move into like Hal Puthoff's patent. I don't know why people are ignoring Hal Puthoff's patent, but the guy's patent literally says that it can go through plasma. It's like just right there in the abstract of Hal Puthoff's patent. It's a communication device that goes through plasma. Guys, like, it's been approved 5 different times. It's clearly a real device. So anyway, yeah, Sal's fusion patent is where we're going to start talking about like the orbs in general. Like, you cannot, Sal's fusion patent mixed with the high energy electromagnetic field generator patent did connections between EVOs and the high energy clusters is undeniable. It's the same exact thing. It's obvious that Sal's fusion patent and his HEEMFG patents, they're clearly inspired by Ken Shoulders, Nachampkin, all the guys. The reason why we looked at all that stuff today is because you can see the connections. between what Sal is talking about. In fact, in his fusion patent, you see counter-rotating magnets above and below his magnetically confined fusion. And he even references Hal Puthoff, gravity is a 0-point fluctuation force in one of his papers as well. So we need to get to the bottom of his inspiration. Which scientists has Sal talked to? I already learned from the Tim Ventura one that he has only spoken to Hal Puthoff one time, which surprised me. But I'm going to dig more into that. I want to find out exactly Sal's relationship with any of these guys. Tom Bearden, Puthoff, Davis. You know, when did he meet them? How long has he known them? How long has he been like a fanboy of them? Because clearly he is. You know, I don't blame him. I am too. Want all that stuff. So let me see. We're also going to try to find out why the Navy let these patents become public. Like, why is the Navy letting these patents become public? That's a big question a lot of people ask. Also may ask why, if he thinks the videos are a test. Really what I want to know is, does he think that that video was made to give to people like him to make the weapons even better? I think there's still a possibility that MH370 was a weapons test and that we were doing it. Maybe it's multi-purpose, right? Like this is a message to China. It's wipe out those defecting scientists. And also maybe it's a weapons test at the same time. Could be all three. I want to know what Sal's opinion on it is. I think that Sal Pais has seen other videos like that drone video. The drone video specifically. I think he's seen other stuff like that. So we're going to find out. Okay. I think that's it, guys. I'm going to go through. I have a bunch of other questions I'm going to ask. I'm going to outline it for Sunday. Sunday's interview will be live. My next interview after Sal is going to be Tom Montauk again. I've already got it scheduled. That will be a pre-recorded interview. I might try to improve the production quality of it a little bit, but probably not. Tom's a good guy to talk to. I am planning on talking to Tom about the connection between scalar waves and fields and plasma. As we saw in there was a connection between this idea of this force-free time harmonic plasmoid, this perfectly sphere of plasma, and a standing scalar wave that might be happening. So should be fun, guys. Okay, guys. Well, I'm going to take off. You have a great night, MH370X. Check out the live stream Sunday, this Sunday, 1:30 Central Time, 2:30 Eastern Time. It's going down. Sal Pais, full disclosure. We're going to figure out if he knows what these orbs are, if he produced the orbs. You know what? We're going to do what Congress couldn't do. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, ZP Disclosure, Bob Green, your alien scientist, Bernie, Kiata Good, all of MH370X, all my admins. Love you guys. Have a great night, guys. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving and hope you had a good Black Friday. Peace out, brothers and sisters.
Out in the fields where the skies are wide, talking about a journey through the cosmic ride. Einstein and Thorne, they set the stage for a trip through time across the space age. Wormholes connect distant points in space, traversable paths to a far-off place. No black holes pull, no crushing weight, just a cosmic tunnel to a distant gate.
Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow.
Exotic matter, negative energy's the key to stabilize the wormhole for you and me. Quantum vacuum, squeeze so tight, creating conditions for this wondrous flight. Static fields and lasers in the lab they play, generating forces in a new kind of way. Gravitational squeezing, Casimir's force, negative zones we need to stay the course.
Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow.
Thin shell formalism, plates so fine. Spherical geometry we realign. Energy conditions that we must defy. For a stable wormhole, let's give it a try. Coulomb forces balancing the plate, creating the throat, open the gates, from Earth to the stars in a single bound. A shortcut through space profound. Engineers and dreamers hold the key to future worlds and what we could be. With science in hand, we forge ahead through the cosmic paths that we now tread.
We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow.
From the fields to the stars, we break the chains. Understanding the universe, we make the gains. Lil Hula Crunk shines, bringing truth to light. Through his music, we'll explore the night. With wormholes and stargates, our path is clear. Exploring the cosmos, our future's here.